Good evening, everybody. Welcome and thank you for joining us once more this Thursday evening. So, you're very welcome. We value your time, and today we are going to take exactly 1 hour where we are going once more to be talking about racism in pictures. Remember, this is a topic that we've been talking about even last week, and last week we looked at racism in pictures and how that affects our children when they always keep seeing children who look like them portrayed in this manner. And today we have our guest, Dr. Njeri, who is a historian, and we are very honored to have her here because Dr. Njeri is not only a historian, she's also a mom. She also teaches at the university. She's one of those people where you ask yourself, how does she do it? And she still finds time to be here and to educate us about racism and about history. So today we're just going to look at this historical aspect. Why does it matter? Why can't we forget our history? And we're going to put this whole picture into that context. And I'm sure you've seen these pictures, especially right now. Wherever you go, even out just outside my house, there's another picture yet still of a mom holding her baby, but you can't see the face of this mother. It's a black child, and they have a running nose, and that's what always those are the pictures that you see all the time. It doesn't matter where you go, you see these pictures, and they are basically microaggressions because whenever you see them, they do something to you. Whenever you see these pictures, I personally get angry, and we want to talk about this because we know everything starts with a conversation. It's in conversations that you find like-minded people, because for change to happen, you need more people for change. Change is not always possible to do alone. You need people to do it, and it's in conversations that you find like-minded people. So we welcome you this evening. Let us know what you think about this topic. Comment what you think we should do about this aspect, and let us know where the solution is. And meanwhile, we are going to have our conversation. So, Njeri, how are you doing this evening?
Thank you so much. I'm very fine. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, thank you for coming. I know you have a lot to do, so it's an honor for you to be here with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's always a privilege.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. So, Jerry, tell us, you are a historian, and you always remind us that history matters, and you always remind us that we can't forget the history. So, as we just go into this topic, why do you think, or why do you always say that history matters? Why do we need to think about history when we think about this racism in pictures?
um, because I just think that racism hurts, right? I think it's important that we understand where it's coming from. We need to trace the roots of, whatever is happening. And, when we see such pictures, there's a deeper history attached to it. These are not just photographs, or they're not just imageries, but they have a deeper meaning, and we have to go back into history and try and locate these the meaning and how we can decode these pictures. And of course, just like you say, that it triggers something in us when we see such pictures, especially as people of African descent. It's because racism hurts, right? So it wears us down. It's a burden. It's you feel like you can smash something just because, or you just feel like you're drowning when you see such such advertisements, and then you realize what's actually going on. So I just think that's very important to look at the historical aspect of these pictures and why they're related to racism. So for me today, I wanted really to put these pictures in a more post-colonial aspect. The discussion around stereotype and the image or imagery that this aid organization used for Africa, because they are these are specific pictures that are being used, and if we start by understanding that these aid or these helping organizations are doing that in the name of human rights.
That's very
And
true.
then, we have then, but on the other side, there's a lot of stereotyping, which then, of course, concerns me very much because, stereotyping is about inferiority and superiority, right? So, and it all comes down to the question of equality. So how can that then work with each other? How does that go? How is that related to each other and actually what these aid organizations are trying to do? So
yeah, we'll go more into that, because I think that that is actually the main topic: inferiority and who makes these pictures, who is the one in power, because even there we see power, and
yeah.
at this moment, I would like to invite all of you. Mario Keo, I see you. Thank you for joining us. Batamona Abeke, who is saying we are camping to be fed with this information. Thank you very much. Maggie Eckhoff, we see you. You're always here. Mari Di Caro, all these people who are always here, who are supporting us. Thank you so much for being here. And remember, you are also our experts. So let us also know what you think. What should we do about these pictures? Because we are all tired. And obviously, if like Batamona Abeke, you are camping there, then it means it is more than just the pictures. It goes much deeper, as Njeri is saying. So, Njeri, when these pictures are always placed in this, obviously there's someone in power, and obviously there's someone who's being dehumanized. When I was thinking about this topic today, I thought about this UN convention, this saying, "Die Würde eines Menschen ist unantastbar," right? The dignity of a human being is, you cannot violate it, right? And then, and then I started thinking, so where does dignity begin? Or what is dignity? Who is a human being? And where does violation begin? Because when you see this picture of this baby with a running nose, and what I always notice is that you don't see the faces of the people holding that baby. You see people holding the baby, but you just see hands, you don't see the faces. So it's also very dubious also in the way it's portrayed. So who decides which human beings and whose dignity and when violation begins? That's always what I ask myself in this when I see these things.
So that is in terms of white privilege and white power, right? So first of all, if we're going to speak about devoted as mentioned is untastbar, then we would have to ask who is being considered to be human, right? Are we part of that humanity, and the whole, there's a long history of African bodies and, Black bodies being dehumanized. So our dignity is indeed, touchable. So it's not the same as the one for white people. But since I'm a historian, I would like to go back, right?
Yes.
And I would like really to try and put this whole debate in a little bit of a historical context.
Please take us back.
Yes. So first of all, I would like to, I don't know if our viewers know that, but I would like to introduce a scholar called Stuart Hall. And, he's giving a very short understanding of what stereotyping is. So he says it's a representational practice, where people are reduced to just a few simple, essential characteristics, right? Which, they become fixed and they're not changeable. And so this means that the stereotypes are used to maintain social order. So when it comes to the question of power, right? And he says this is a gross inequality of power. So because power is not distributed to everyone at the same level. So there is a kind of a splitting, right? So when you're talking about the human right and the dignity, there's a kind of, when we put it then in the stereotyping category, then there's a strategy of splitting and dividing, what is normal, what is acceptable, what is, what abnormal is. And of course, all this leads to exclusion, right? So when we put that in a historical context, we know that, so, like the European expansion and the conquest resulted in our bodies, or the bodies being, or the new notion of race comes out, right? So we have travelers, we have missionaries and slave traders and plantation owners. They all narrate stories about Africa, right? Their physical appearance, the social hierarchies, the religion, and also the political status of what is happening in Africa. But these European writers, they construct Africa or Africans, as people who are not intelligent, who are animal-like, we don't have a soul, we are pagan. So that again comes to the question of humanity. See, already when we are categorized in such or such languages used, to name us or to call us, we are like animal-like, or we are pagans, or we are savages, we are uncivilized. So already our humanity is taken out, right? So and then this is the time that we have in the 18th century. We have this idea of progress, and so we have different cultures being categorized in different stages, and maybe somebody would want to Google that, but social Darwinism is very important when we start talking about these pictures and the image and the messages and the colonial and the post-colonial history behind that, right? Because the idea of a social Darwinism or evolutionism, it's starting from the thing of societies moving from primitive to modern and more complex societies, which of course Africa is not part of it, right? And we still find these notions, or I still find these notions again in such pictures, right? And what these pictures want to say. So
wow, let's just summarize that, because this is really loaded what we are just learning here. So we've just learned about Stewart Hall and his ideologies about normal and abnormal, and then we come back to the also Darwinism and all this, because these are things that happened such a long time ago, and sometimes we might think it no longer matters, but it does matter, because when we see at what is happening now, who is human and who's not human, what does it take to be a human? Are you still a human when you don't have a hand? Are you still a human when your legs are cut off? When do you stop being human? And these are things that have been taken down into our minds, such that when we see such a child who's black, we don't really get surprised. Should we see a white child in the same situation, there will be an outcry. There will be people will come together and wonder what's happening to this child. This cannot be happening. And so this is what we are looking at. We are looking at this historical context and what happened back then, which narratives were told about black people, and how are we seeing this still being reproduced up to today. Okay, so go on, Jen.
Yeah, so maybe coming back to that, to the point that you just said, that you not see such pictures. Of course, you won't see such pictures, the same way you would see them depicting black bodies or African bodies, because there's an agenda behind it, right? And I think if you start decoding these images, then we can see that we have when we see the black bodies, we will see the face, and it's not only of a child but also of women. There's also the gender aspect, which I found that, I haven't seen yet these images being reproduced where you see men, or
This
where you
is
see
so
light-skinned Africans in the same situation. So again, it's going back, to the history of, portraying dark-skinned as, still savage-like, poverty, starvation. And so all these discourses keep on being reproduced in such images, right?
let
So
us
there's a
highlight
deeper
this
meaning to
aspect.
that.
Let us really highlight this aspect, because when you told me that, it's the first time I sat down and thought, and I just realized I have also never seen a black man being portrayed in these pictures. It's always the women. And right now, to our listeners out there, you just let us know, because for me it was a great shock for me today, because I've never noticed that. Have you ever seen men carrying these babies? Have you ever seen men being portrayed in these pictures? Or have you ever also seen light-skinned black people? Because also colorism plays a role, and those are topics we never want to speak, because sometimes we don't want to hurt other people, we don't want to be too loud. But have you ever seen those things? Because when I sat down to remember, I have never seen any of them. It's really an important point that we have to highlight here right now.
Mm-hmm. And I just think that's an important aspect, of also the kind of messages that they want to portray, and we've seen all these pictures with almost all NGOs and all these institutions. It's white, it's small babies, they have flies, it's white, it's black babies. They are, they are half naked. Like I can remember vividly that when there was a famine or hunger in Ethiopia, that you had this picture. I can still see her face, this small girl who was very, she was very dirty and her clothes were torn, and she was very thin, and you could really see she's almost on the verge of life and death. And so these are the kind of images that they keep on being reproduced over and over in order for this AIDS organization or these institutions to kind of convey their message, or say whatever they want to say, in order for them to get the capital, right?
But now the next question will be, what is the purpose? What is the purpose of this? Because we have seen, like I was telling my friend the other day, when the Notre Dame burned, you didn't have to see any small white French babies being portrayed in a funny way. When this Notre Dame burned, we found countries coming together. Millions of money were collected for a building. For a building, it was enough. The building was enough to show. People did not have to be dehumanized. So, what is the purpose of, do we need to collect money in this form? Because now when I talk about this and people are like, yeah, but children are poor and there are poor children in Africa and there is poverty. We don't want to deny that. Of course, obviously there is still poverty. So is it the only way we can collect money, first of all? And the second thing is, do we actually even have to collect this money? Who does it benefit? What do you think?
Exactly. And who is this person making these pictures? Right?
Mhm,
These are
mhm,
specific people making these pictures because they have a specific agenda. And the agenda, if you really look deeper, when these organizations are using these pictures to collect money, does that money really reach the people that it's supposed to reach?
mhm,
Does that money really, make a difference in so many people's lives, in the women that they portray or in the children that they portray?
mhm,
Do they really go back? What I would like to see, I want, if you can speak now, very, just openly,
yes.
if I see such a picture, then I want to see the after picture, right?
Mhm,
If you show me such a picture, then I would like to see after I have donated the money and after you've collected the money, let me see what you have done. Where is
mhm,
the progress? Where are these people becoming self-sufficient? Where are they being empowered? But you don't
mhm,
see that. So it's a reproduction of the same image, because people, and this is all about advertising, right? So you have big people and big, people who are in the advertising, who keep on reproducing the same images because they know these images do something to you, right?
mhm,
They know
mhm,
that these images are going to make somebody think, oh, look at that poor baby, oh, look at that poor woman. And I think maybe this is why they don't use men. They would rather use women because they think women are in that in a vulnerable situation, right? And then it also even goes deeper in how they construct the identity, or even how they think about what an African woman looks like, or the role of an African woman, right? So there are so
mhm,
many things that are interconnected with each other that one cannot just say, it's just a picture that is just showing a woman who is hungry, or it's just showing a small child with flies and naked. It goes even deeper than that. And I think we have to question ourselves: who are the people gaining from consuming such images? This is where the black bodies actually become commodities, right?
mhm.
The commodification of the black bodies, right? So you can sell these bodies, and these organizations are going to get that money. So
Wow.
I would like to see how, I would like to see what happens after, but you will not see the after pictures, because that's not the aim of this of these institutions, of these NGOs, right?
That is so important what you're saying. Where are the after pictures now that and something else that annoys me very much is you will also find um, small notices saying 20 cents can save a life. You know, just donate 20 cents. And I always think this is total bullshit, sorry, but 20 cents cannot save a life. I mean, and so how does that also then also feed into this narrative of black people just need so little to come by? They just need 20 cents and then they're going to be saved and then they're just going to be fine, you know. Um, and Batamara Becker is actually saying the purpose of these pictures is to impress or touch the donors to donate so as they can sustain their jobs and luxury life. Yes, also, I agree with this so much because it's also during this Christmas when people are now given a feeling of being good people, you know, because now they have all this luxury. and now they want to remember also somebody else who is poor, so they just give in 20 cents to save themselves also from this guilt. But as you are saying, there are no after pictures to see there was actual progress. This money actually did go somewhere to help somebody. And even last week, we were talking about the same topic, and we had a comment from Sompong Global TV who was saying 25% actually goes to advertising, 25% goes to keeping these jobs. It's actually only 25% that reaches these children. So there are real people who earn their money, who have an unbefristete Arbeitsstelle just for that. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, of course, and I mean this, this creation of jobs and maintaining or sustaining of these jobs is done on the backs of Black bodies,
Mm-hmm,
right? Because these jobs are being created here; they're not being created where apparently the help is needed, right?
mm-hmm,
That
mm-hmm,
money stays here, and I think we've heard a lot of, there was a lot of scandal how this money that is being actually used for their own purposes, like they will drive big cars and they'll be
mm-hmm,
living a good life because this money is helping them and not actually helping those who are supposed to be helped. And I also have a huge problem with this thing of they need to be helped.
mm-hmm.
First of all, we need to be clear that without Africa, there's no Europe and there's no North America, right? All the
Yeah,
wealth
yeah.
that is being enjoyed here comes from the African continent. And
Mm-hmm,
until we as Black people, regardless of where we are, realize that, then we're going to reclaim what is ours. And I think,
mm-hmm,
and that's the only way we will be able to do that is, again, understanding our history and understanding our position, right? So
mm-hmm,
all this money they are saying that they're taking to Africa, it's actually our money,
mm-hmm,
right? Because it's the money that is being taken out from the African continent and the resources that are being, transported day and night coming from the African continent, coming to Europe and going to North America, right? So if you're going to speak in the question of repatriation, they should not even be showing those pictures and saying they're doing that to help us. We are the ones who are helping them, so they should give us our due, right? It's
So
just
Tessie,
annoying.
it is annoying when I was looking at another piece of chocolate, where when you buy it, I don't know, 25% or not even 20, maybe 2% goes to help African children. And I stood there and I thought, in this whole German country, there is no cocoa tree. There is no cocoa tree apart from the Schokoladen Museum where there's this one single cocoa tree. Otherwise, cocoa does not grow in this country. So
Yeah.
cocoa has been taken from Africa, from West Africa, has been brought to Europe, and now the buyers have to buy and take in back 2 cents to go back and help those same kids who are harvesting that cocoa. I mean, it's perverse, isn't it?
Ah, it is. But then
Wow.
again, if you go back to history, then it all makes sense, right? Because this
Mhm,
is the colonial imperial mentality, right? Of wanting
mhm,
to civilize Black people of the African continent, right? So there's a mission behind it. So, uh, you know, so if we think about like how the West has been able to encounter, or I always say there are 3 points where the West has encountered Black people, and which is also important because of the way then they construct us and how they think about us. Even that thing of we want to help you comes here from somewhere. Yeah, paternalismus. It's
mhm,
coming from somewhere, right?
mhm,
And so, we have the first contact where we have, between the traders and the West African kingdoms, that was very late, I think in the 16th centuries, and it started the slave trade, right? And then we have, the colonization of Africa during the imperialism, which of course was a struggle of the European powers control over the territory, the markets, and our resources in the African continent, right? So that's why I
mhm,
said it's just annoying when when they take away from us and then they want to give us back peanuts, right?
mhm,
And then the migration of the migration from Europe to North America after the Second World War. So and these encounters have strongly shaped Western ideas about race and difference, right? How they perceive us and how they construct us. So for me, when I read these advertisements from a post-colonial perspective, it allows me, or it provides a form of an awareness, to try and trace the origins and the mechanism that are being used in this by these organizations to keep on reproducing the same images. So through that reproduction of these images, the African bodies are constructed as others, right? So, and the European, of course, carries is the universal historical development process. So he is like the one who is more developed, and he's upper the ladder than the African people or African bodies. So this is actually a very imperial project. These organizations are doing what had already started in the 18th century. And a form of an imperial project, which is now being used through advertising, and as I said, the commodification of the black body, which is very racist, right? Because we are talking about Africa in a language of it's falling apart, it's backward, it's poor, it's a hub of diseases. And all these images are picked up by most white people in the West, and even some of our black people, right? They think this is the way Africa looks like.
Yeah, yeah. I get that also because I am more into schools now, and I remember the first day I went to one of the schools I've worked. The first the first thing I introduced myself and I say hello, this is Miss Kamande, and then the child comes to me, very polite, and tells me, "Hello, Miss Kamande. Actually, I wanted to tell you that my dad helps children in Africa, hungry children in Africa." And I was like, "Oh, that's really nice of your dad. Does he also support poor children in Germany?" And this child was just totally confused. He did not understand why I even thought that there could be any poor children in Germany. And this reminds me of Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's the danger of a single story. Because now every child in this universe has had a running nose. Every child in this universe who's born has had, but we don't take that single moment and portray them like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this single story that we create about white people, and then this other single story that we create about black people. What was the purpose now when we look at the at imperialism and colonialism, and what is the purpose right now? What is being served even up to today? I just saw a comment from Helen, who has had experience at work, who says those gaining are 90% the staff. I work for Diakoni, Helen, and I know how much money landed to the clients and how much went to salaries. All taxpayers' money and donors with good intentions, survival for the fittest. Let's expose these scavengers. So actually, they are actually even being called scavengers, which is the right, because we really need to speak about up about these things. So, Njeri, once again to my question, what was the purpose back then? When we look at the colonial and slavery context, and what is the purpose now apart from this money issue?
I don't think the purpose has changed a lot, right? Because it's still the dehumanization of the African body, right?
Mm-hmm,
It's still the writing out of the humanity of the black body. It's still talking about very negatively about the African continent and its people.
mm-hmm,
And when I talk about post-colonialism or post-coloniality, I'm not talking about something that has come and gone. It's a continuity, right? It's still
mm-hmm,
continuing. Only
mm-hmm,
maybe it has taken a different shape, right? But
mm-hmm,
if you think about that imperial project, wanting to civilize, of wanting to help, of wanting to, using very colonial language to describe the African continent. It's still the same thing that is happening even now, right? There are a lot of people who say they're African experts, and some of them have never even been to the continent. And this is the
I
same
know.
thing that was happening in the 18th century, that you have people, travelers, as I said in the beginning, travelers who have not been to the African continent, but who kind of write diaries of they have heard stories about Africa, and that's exactly what they write. And then that writing down of such narratives becomes like it's the truth of how Africa looks like, or how Africa is constructed. So
Mm-hmm,
it's a continuation, it's a historical continuation of what is happening right now. And these NGOs continue with that history by them reproducing the same images. Why can't they produce images where they are showing how Africa is progressing?
mm-hmm,
Why can't they show how people are empowering themselves? Why
mm-hmm,
can't they show how people in the African continent themselves, and even people in the diaspora, who are doing a lot for the African continent, how they're building Africa and that Africa is rising. Why are they not talking about how, they should start thinking about giving us back what belongs to us, yeah, in terms of, all the
Restitution.
things. Exactly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a difficult and complex discussion, because you cannot say that it just started now. There's a pattern, there's a historical pattern that is continuing, and it comes from somewhere. It comes because there's a historical background to it. There's a history that was there before, and it has been followed up. So when that kid hears that, or when you ask that child, why isn't your father helping children here in in Germany, or even in East Germany, not East Germany, but I mean even East Europe, right? Where, according to in my own opinion, I think there are some of them who are more poorer than some African countries, right? But nobody is going to show them, because these people have a white body, right? And white body cannot be shown in such an embarrassing situation, right? You don't want to show that the white body can be in poverty. So there's no way you're going to see a white child, and this is what I wanted to come to, like, the different images that you have, that you cannot have, you cannot have pictures of white kids, on the board, and they're saying, like Veltunga is saying, 20 cent can be able to feed a child somewhere here in Europe, or somewhere in Germany, right? Because that child is seen as a human being. That child or that woman is not dehumanized. And probably when they do that, they'll definitely also name that child or name that woman, so that that person
Yeah.
has an identity. In our own case, we are not named, we are nameless, and we are faceless. We are nameless, right? So it's just a picture of a small child, of a woman. We don't know who she is, where she's coming from which country, what is her story, what is her narrative. And even the most important thing, she doesn't even know, or most of these people don't even know, that their pictures are being used for this purpose,
That is
right?
so
So
important.
we need to start, we need to start thinking about how we can re-educate ourselves, by, when we see such images, then we should follow up and know, who are these people? We want to know the name of these people, who took that photograph, and for what purpose? And does this person know that this picture of a woman, of this small baby, is being used everywhere to get money, right? Because most of
Wow.
them have no idea. And how can we then go to these big institutions and tell them, you better stop, because there are consequences? And I think they do not stop, because we, as people of African descent, haven't really taken them, to the higher level. We haven't really done something that, is going to cause a lot of chaos, like, like
Yeah.
saying, we're going to sue you,
Yeah.
like.
My friend always tells me we are not angry enough. To the people who have just joined us, today we are talking about racism in pictures, and with us in studio is Dr. Njeri, a historian who is actually giving us the historical context of this racism in pictures. And up to now, we've been talking about the black bodies and how these black bodies are used as commodities, actually, also to even earn money for white people. We've talked about how in these pictures there is this dehumanization. People are either faceless or people have a face, but they are nameless. So their stories just hanging in the air. You don't know who this is. It's just a baby with a running nose. No story, no name. Also, this denaming of people, lack of names, lack of context that is just being placed on your face, and you just have to deal with it, and then just give in 20 sets, and then you're going to feel better about yourself. So this is what we've been talking about, and as we go on to the next phase of this conversation, um, we would like to look at what can we now do, because obviously we have seen that whenever we do come together and whenever we do say this, we've had enough, this should not go on like this, we do get a change. And we have seen people who refuse to give in history, and they did make a change. And right now we are talking about this one because it has been going on and on and on, and it is a narrative that was used to justify colonialism. When you dehumanize people, it's okay to colonialize them. When you dehumanize people, it's okay to take them as slaves. When you dehumanize people, it's okay to take their resources and give them peanuts. So exactly what we are seeing happening in these pictures. So, Jerry, now, because we've said that we can't continue seeing these pictures, and we really do need to change something. Whenever I see that, I always ask myself, um, who why do some people still cooperate and let pictures of themselves be taken? Of course, sometimes maybe they don't know, but maybe sometimes people do know actually. So why do we still have a lot of Black people cooperating in this? And when we go on, what can we do actually to bring a stop to this? And before we even ask ourselves what we can do, in the second question, I would like us to ask ourselves, what does it do as to us Black people, looking at the question of internalized racism and how that re-enhances also internalized racism also in children. So yeah, so let's start with, why do we still cooperate, or why do people still cooperate and not question these things?
I wouldn't very much say that they cooperate because I
Mm,
don't think that they know. Um, I don't know, sometimes when I look at these images, I just see, a woman and I think maybe someone just took a picture and said, I want to take a picture of you.
mhm,
Because maybe it's an NGO, all these aid workers who go to Africa and they're going for 1 year or 6 months and then come back as African experts, right?
mhm, mhm,
They become the saviors. We are coming to save Africa from itself and from its own,
mhm.
and from its own
Tragedy.
poverty and
Mhm,
tragedy and chaos, right?
mhm, mhm,
But I am not sure that these women, if really one would trace them and show them how these pictures of them are being used, that they would say, yeah, this is what I wanted my picture to be used for. I'm not
this
sure
is
that is.
so
I'm not sure
amazing,
that.
because if you
Yes,
take a picture of any white child, again, I work in schools, and again, if you want to take a picture of any child in Germany, you have to get a signature from parents or caregivers. You can't even think about just making photos about of children. You will be sued. So
exactly.
are you saying it's possible that these people, they are being taken, these pictures of them and their children are being taken, and they don't even know that this
They
is what
don't
is
even
going
know. Yeah, but there's one thing that I came across because a lot of these organizations, some of them repeat the same pictures that
on?
have been used by other people. And one example that I found is a so-called Biafra child, right? So this was the Nigerian Biafra war in the 60s, and there was war, there was a famine, and so there are some pictures of children that were taken, so-called Biafra child. And these images have been reproduced by so many different organizations, right? So sometimes it's not that they go there themselves and take the pictures, but it's an image that the media has used, and they reuse and reuse this image, to for them to get donors or to get money, or to do whatever they want to do with it. So that's why I'm saying that some of these people, they don't even know that those are the reasons why their pictures are being taken. If a picture is taken, like I can remember, there was a time that a lot of tourists would go to Narok in Masai Land and just take pictures,
Mhm,
without asking. And people did ask because they thought, oh, this is fun, right? But they didn't know the implication of some of these white people taking their pictures. They would come back here and they're used in organizations for exactly such purposes. And there are some people who have sued, right? I think I can remember there was also this discussion on Facebook, and Carol Watkins also said, yeah, it's possible to sue, right?
mhm,
So this could also be a possibility. And I think the most important thing is that we need to educate ourselves that not everything that is white is good,
yeah.
right? I think you remember a couple of months ago, or I think 2 years ago, I'm not sure, please correct me if I'm wrong, where we had this white woman from America going to Uganda and pretending she's a doctor, and she killed so many black babies,
I remember.
right?
Yeah. Oh
So
my God.
everything, there's more to the skin than just what the eye sees. And
Mhm,
so we
mhm,
need to also deconstruct our own minds in terms of what we think white can be able to do, or white people can be able to do for us, and
mhm.
their qualifications and their expertise, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
when somebody just comes and you do not know if this person is qualified to be a doctor, and then you just give them their baby because you think they have a white skin, so it means we
Mhm,
need to re-educate ourselves, right? We need to understand how the power of whiteness, right? And how we have internalized, as you said, internalized racism in such a manner that we think anything that comes from the West is good. Their medicine is
yes.
good because it's coming from the West. Yet we forget we've been doctors, and we've been making medicines for
Mhm,
years, right? For generations, right?
mhm,
And if you would trace back even the history of medicine, you will find it that it begins in Africa, right?
mhm.
So if civilization begins in Africa, then we were also the first doctors, right? So we also need to rethink, how we uphold and continue to maintain these systems of white supremacy with how we think about the West and how we think about what comes from here.
That is something I always think. I always think that the solution to all our troubles really lies in re-education, and it really lies in actually acknowledging internalized racism. Because racism is one thing, but the racism that we have internalized, and I can speak about that because when I came to this country, I expected white people to be this and that. Because this is what I had seen. I had never seen white people on the street. I had never seen any white poor person. Whenever I saw white people in movies, they were in big, nice houses, they had big cars. Everything about them was beautiful. And when I went on Google and searched beautiful, I saw white women. Whenever I went to engineering, lawyer, whatever it is that you Google, you saw white people. So for me, I know this is a real serious aspect because I had to do some serious work to work with my own internalized racism. And I still work with that today. And I think it is so important to talk about this because now these pictures, they enhance the very same internalized racism that we are talking about. A child who's born here, or even home, because even home you see those very same pictures. They go, and whenever they see people who look like them, they're always portrayed like that. So when do they find also these counter pictures? Because it's okay to
Mm-hmm.
have one bad picture of a black person, and then maybe one good picture of a black person, so it's equalized. But in this case, we rarely have equalizing pictures. It's always in this negative thing, and it kind of keeps this vicious cycle of the pictures feed the racism feeds the picture, and on it goes,
Yeah.
leading to
So the
such things as
discourses keep on coming back, right? It's the same
Mhm,
discourse that keeps on coming back in different shades and in different times, but it's the same thing that is being reproduced again and again and again, right?
mhm,
So for me, what I would really want to see is that also we as people of African descent really saying no. Just
mhm,
the same way that you cannot just stand somewhere and photograph a white person and then put that picture somewhere on the street, then
mhm,
we should also protest, and say that should stop, right?
mhm, mhm,
Because what this does to us is that it's showing, it keeps on producing this image even to our own children when they see
mhm,
such pictures, and they keep on thinking that they're not human enough, right?
mhm,
It keeps on
mhm,
humanizing them, and they think they are lesser human because when they consume, right, they consume such images, and even
mhm,
the West continues to consume such images. That's why you will see, sometimes when you meet some of them who are much older, they look at you, and when they see maybe you're dressed well or you smell well, they'll be like, this is not the image that I know of black people. Normally you should be
mhm,
having a fly, or normally you should be looking in a certain way, because they are images, and these images, uh, whether we want to believe it or not, these images do carry a kind of a power in it, and they form their mind of how they think about people of African descent.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. It does. And as you can see, Helen just said, if you are interested in creating awareness on this topic, please check on pamojaafrica.org. It's also Pamoja who have created this awareness against racism program. So these are things that we want. We want to have conversations in these topics in all areas, because indeed racism affects us in all areas. There's no free day. Even when you go on holiday, like even when I went we were on holiday with a friend in Creta, and we saw those pictures even there. So you're even there, you're not thinking about such things, but racism just slaps you on your face every time. So we've been talking about internalized racism, and I think also sometimes I also think why we allow these things to happen is because we've internalized, the white person has defined us, and now as we have taken this definition, and without asking ourselves who are we really, we took their definition and we took their pictures and made them our own. And I think this is so dangerous because then it becomes a cycle. When can I say no to a white person when I internally think this person is better or more superior than me? Will I even think that I have a power to say no to such things. And Phyllis Cara Phyllis is saying algorithms reinforce racist and white superiority stereotypes. This adds to the problem. Yes, of course, because these pictures also being kicked also up. So you have no way of escaping them. They just follow you wherever you go, and with that, they create the narrative. So how can we create our own narrative? How is it possible to create our own narrative when we are being faced by giants like UNICEF, giants like Brot für die Welt, giants like all these white saviorist aids that have been going on for decades, really? Do we have a chance?
Oh, yes, we do have a chance. And the first chance is that we as a people of African descent have to learn to love ourselves. We have
Mm-hmm,
to know that we come from, great peoples.
mm-hmm,
We've been there before them, and
mm-hmm,
that they're not better and not capable than we are, right? And this is something that we need to install also to our small children.
mm-hmm,
I currently am really advocating for the re-education of us, people of African descent themselves, because sometimes we do not even know our histories.
mm-hmm,
And as Marcos Garvey said, people without a history are people without a root. So if you
mm-hmm,
do not know our history, then we do not have the roots, and if we do not have the roots, then we do not have the strategies and the powers to be able to fight back, right? And to be
mm-hmm,
able to say no, right? You have to be able to say no when you have a strategy, and you have to be able to say no when you know what's going on. And some people, some people from the community will just say, I don't care about that picture. I don't know the woman, or I don't know that child. What has that got to do with me? It has a lot to
mm-hmm,
do with you, because, no matter where you come from the African continent, the fact is, once we are in the diaspora and once we are outside our home countries, we are all
mm-hmm,
people of African descent. So it really doesn't matter if I'm from somewhere else. Anytime any white person sees that picture, they directly and see me, they directly associate that picture and the constructions that have been made around that imagery directly with you. So yes, it has something to do with us, and yes, we have to re-educate ourselves, and yes, we have to understand that it's important that we first love ourselves, and that we go back and retrace our histories, and know that that's very important, because when white people retrace their histories, they can go back, right?
mm-hmm,
But how many
mm-hmm.
of us can be able to trace it back, right?
Yeah.
And because we think history doesn't matter, yet
Mm-hmm,
it's history that has made that has white people have kept on using in terms of white supremacy and power, right? So when there's that construction of hierarchies of who is up the ladder and who is below the ladder, there's a historical context to that, right? So yes, history does matter, and yes, we have to start re-educating ourselves. We
mm-hmm,
not only I think we have to stop educating white people about their white supremacies and about their terrorism, and we
mm-hmm.
have to start educating ourselves so that we can find a position and reaffirm our positions.
Wow, this is so important what you're saying. We spend a lot of energy educating white people because we think that in educating them, they will stop being who they are and we are going to have better chances. But obviously, it's not true. And I always think even if racism from the white side stopped today, we will still need a lot of work to heal our own because racism is trauma, right? And as you said in the beginning, racism is pain and going through this pain every day because as a black person you're not free from racism. Whether you tell yourself you don't face racism or not, you do face it. And racism is pain and it's trauma. So there is a lot that we need to do to work also with this trauma and to work with ourselves in the direction of loving ourselves, as Njeri is saying. And Njeri, you are talking about history and that we need to know our history. So is that how self-love looks like when we know our history? Or what else do we need for us to have this self-love?
I think in terms of this organization, so a lot has to happen. I think it's not just enough writing petitions. I think more has to happen, on a different level.
Mhm,
Because these advertisements and whatever they use, these are millions and maybe millions of dollars or euros behind them, right?
Mhm.
And so the kind of material that they're using and the kind of imagery that they are using, we need to question them in terms of their own understanding of human rights and equality, right? As I said in the beginning, there also needs to be a shift in the discourse from donor to receiver to
Mhm.
partner, right?
Mhm.
Because this
Mhm.
donor receiver, it means they are donating, we are receiving, which we know we don't.
Mhm.
And so that has to change in terms of partner and partner. If you come in with a project that is going to help, not even help, but it is going to give back to the community, then we should be able to work on an equal level as partners, and not
Mhm.
one is superior and the other one is inferior. So, and those imperial structures that are very much present still in these organizations, they have to be dismantled,
Mhm.
right? We need one that is more equal. So we need to be working with each other on an equal level. And the other thing, I think that, as I said in the beginning, they are so nice pictures, right? Why don't they focus on the culture? The
Mhm.
positive projects that are going there, photographs of people who are not only dying and, people who are hungry, but, kids who are playing, people, happy people, right?
Mhm.
Um, but of course, this would be against what they want, their intentions, or what they want to, what they want to convey. And
Mhm.
the other thing which I think is very important is that these organizations have to take responsibility. They have to take responsibility of the kind of messages that they're sending out.
Mhm.
Because they are more focused on the selling copies or getting higher ratings, which organization gets more money, because they want to reach a goal, and then reaching the goal is how much money they can be able to collect. So actually all these aid organizations, these are businesses,
Mhm.
right? These are
Mhm.
businesses, and they are, and then become even more complicated in terms of, the kind of media and the advertising that they are using for their own organizations.
Mhm.
And they also need to be cautious of the kind of stereotypes that they keep on reproducing. Yeah, they
Mhm.
need to be more cautious. They need to have a shift in that sense.
Wow, wow, thank you. Yeah, African history does matter, says Sheryl. So remember, we've been talking about racism in pictures, and we have talked a lot, and our time is quickly coming to an end. Um, But Moyabeke is saying deconstruct racism on the spot and re-educate them at the same time by not letting racism go unmentioned and unexposed. It's working marvelous. So this is also a model that can work, but we should not forget to re-educate ourselves, of course. And yes, we've been talking about racism in pictures, and we started by looking at the dignity of a human being is inviolable, right? You can't violate the dignity of the human being, and we considered what is a human being, and through that we started talking about the dehumanization of black people, and actually Dr. Njeri calls it black bodies, and black bodies as a commodity, and what is allowed with black bodies that is not allowed with white bodies, and we have talked also about the aspect of re-education, and we have talked about how and who benefits from these pictures, because definitely it's not those children, because as Jerry was saying, we've never seen the after picture, like when you have these before and after pictures of any good weight loss product, when you see the person who was really huge, now they've lost weight, to be legitimate, you always, and any good research has also to be checked, any good from anything good is questioned and seen even in the after, but this is something that never happens with these pictures. So people send money, people send huge amounts of money, people don't even really know how much money comes together, but we know very well that yes, some money does go to those children, but not much. Really, a small percentage is what goes to those children. And what does that do to these children? What does that do to us? And Jerry was telling us to remember that it does affect us. It doesn't matter if we don't know this woman or where she lives, or this woman and their child. It doesn't matter. It does affect us, because once we come to this country, we are black people. We are no longer Kenyan or Nigerian or whatever. We are black. And the stories that white people have told themselves about black people, they apply to you whether you like it or not. So this is why it is so important for us to take this in our own hands and to start writing our own narratives. And Jerry was telling us that where to begin is with self-love. We need to start with the self-love. And this self-love starts also by knowing our history. Because once we know our history, and she said, she talked about the quote from James Baldwin, a people without a history is like a people without a root. And this is really dangerous. We're just floating in the air. Anybody can say anything about us, and we will accept because we don't know who we really are. So this is what we've been talking about, and it's been really amazing. So please write in the comments what you think we should do about this. Also contact Pamoja Africa, FAO, if you have more concrete ideas. And we are going to continue with our conversation here. So Njeri, we have only 3 more minutes. Do you have any closing words?
Yeah, as a historian, I just think it's very important that we go back, we retrace our histories back. This is the first thing. The so-called Enlightenment thinkers, the first thing they said is that Africa doesn't have a history. And so at that moment where our history is taken away, it means that, we are just human beings there with nothing, right? So I'm sorry, my daughter just woke up.
Okay.
So I'm gonna try and hide her so that she doesn't also get into the media and they make a picture of her.
Oh, yes.
So I would also want to say that it's our heritage and it's our greatness and it's our weapon. And once we know our history, then we can also be able to have the right tools and the right strategies to be able, to re-educate ourselves and also, as I said, claim what is ours. It's important that we know we have rights, right? And that even we are also humans. And so the moment somebody tries to dehumanize us, we should be the loudest, right? And such pictures, of course, like as everybody, as most people in the chat are saying, they affect us very much and they continue affecting us. These pictures have been there since the 50s, the 60s, right? It's this white saviorism image of, of a white person coming to save us. Save us from what? Right? I just think we need to understand that we are great people and that, when we start talking about reparation, this is ours. And they should not be giving us back in peanuts. Here they're creating jobs. Here they're getting money and upholding certain structures. While in the African continent they want to portray us in a certain light, and that light is not right.
Wow. Yeah, thank you so very much. Your baby woke up just on time. Our time is
Yes.
over anyway. So then you guys have a wonderful evening. We will excuse you at this moment, but thank you so much for being here, and thank you for taking your time to come and inform us on this very important information, because we do need to know our history, and most of us
Yes.
don't know our history.
Thank you for having me. And this is a discussion that we should continue.
Yes.
And I would also want to be part of that project, of course, as a historian. And then, we put everything into historical context.
Definitely.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I think
Thank you
you're
so
going to
much.
be one of our pioneers.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I won't be here without the rest. So I have to hide my daughter's face. Sorry.
It's okay. All
Okay.
right. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.